I think I may have found my new favorite lens. And it's probably a lens you've never heard of. Or maybe you have. I don't know. Anyway, what's up everyone? My name is Tyler, and this is the SIRUI Anamorphic lens. The anamorphic lens for everyone. Well, most everyone. Let me explain. So, the SIRUI anamorphic lens is easily the most affordable anamorphic lens we've seen, with similar lenses costing $1,000 or more. Not only that, but the SIRUI lens is built for mirrorless and micro four thirds cameras, making it not only the most affordable, but the most accessible anamorphic lens for amateurs like me and you. But I guess the question is it any good? Well, I'll let you be the judge of that.
Always think of you when spring comes, like it's something in the air at that time. Don't know why. Always dream of you when spring comes. It's like the heat on my skin takes me back to the time met you on a Friday, halfway out at the door of the club, playing soul on the weekends, stayed in bed till Wednesday. Fell in love with you right there and then. I was young, couldn't see that.
Honestly, I'm super impressed with this lens, and at under $800, you really can't complain about the price, considering most lenses these days are gonna run you $400 to $800 plus anyway. Now that doesn't mean that this lens is perfect, or for everyone, but if you like shooting short films or just love the anamorphic look like I do, look no further. I mean, stop the video here and just go get this thing already. Actually wait, because there's a few important things you should consider first. So on the outside, the lens is just like any other lens, an aluminum construction with a ton of glass elements, 11 to be exact. SIRUI did a great job with the build quality here, and I have no complaints. The focus and aperture rings are both softly dampened and are easy to turn, both with hard stops on either end. But keep in mind that there are no individual stops in between f-stops, so if that bothers you, this lens doesn't have that. But beware, because this lens is not waterproof. Now that doesn't mean you can't get away with using it in tricky environments, it just means you're not protected in the event you get water or sand or mud or whatever else stuck inside the lens. So be extra careful when shooting in these kinds of conditions. This is the 50mm, but they also have a 35mm and a new 24mm, giving you a wide variety of popular focal lengths to choose from, all of which are a 1.33 times anamorphic crop. However, like most anamorphic lenses, this lens is quite heavy. It shouldn't be an issue for most people, but just keep that in mind if you plan to fly it on a gimbal or plan to shoot handheld without a rig. That being said, these are also prime lenses, so you won't get any zoom capability, and all that glass is simply used to achieve the anamorphic look. This particular model has an f-stop range of 1.8 to 16, but remember that f-stops are a little different on anamorphic lenses given their ovular shaped diaphragms. Another really important note about this lens is that it doesn't have autofocus. Now, to some of you, this may be a deal breaker, but let me say this. Before owning this lens, I had never really shot using manual focus before because honestly, autofocus is so convenient and works most of the time. But after forcing myself to shoot with this lens manually, I learned just how much better manual focus can be in controlling the way a scene looks. Not only that, but there's something about pure manual focus that just looks so pleasing. This is a bit different than the manual focus on some autofocus lenses, as they tend to use an electronic motor to adjust focus, whereas a pure manual focus lens uses obviously no electronics. It's hard to explain exactly what I mean, but trust me when I say that focusing on this lens is a treat compared to even my two Fujinon lenses, which both have autofocus and an electronic manual focus. Pair that with a follow focus motor like the Tilta Nucleus Nano, and you're on your way to shooting your next big hit. Which reminds me, make sure to subscribe because I'm actually working on a video about the Nucleus Nano. Spoiler alert, it's a pretty awesome little device, but I'll save that for the next video. But Tyler, what about the lens flare? the bokeh. Well, let me tell you, the lens flare and the bokeh on this lens are exactly what you'd expect from an anamorphic lens. Bright blue horizontal light shafts tend to shoot from one end to the other and add a very pleasing look to your shots. However, I will say in some instances, the flare is a bit too strong. So strong, in fact, you actually end up with this harsh blue bar and even multiple bars that can make your shot look more like a malfunctioning screen than a Hollywood blockbuster. It doesn't happen often, but depending on how intense the light source is, you may experience less pleasing flares, so just keep that in mind while shooting directly into the light. You can also dampen this by using a diffusion filter like the Moment Cinebloom filter or a Polar Pro mist filter, which I recommend if you're going purely for a cinematic look. Now when it comes to bokeh, the unique thing about anamorphic lenses is their ovular shaped bokeh as opposed to the more traditional spherical bokeh you may be used to. I wouldn't say it really changes the appearance of your shot quite like the lens flare does, but it is a unique characteristic of this lens, and I don't think you'd be disappointed with the results, especially considering it gets as wide as f1.8, making it a great lens for shooting in low light. In terms of the overall image quality, the glass is good quality as far as I can tell. And in my testing, I didn't notice any sort of artifacts or oddities that would make this lens unusable or low quality. Color reproduction and clarity are solid, and I never noticed any issues with having to adjust colors despite the amount of glass in this lens. Focusing is accurate and as sharp as you'd expect, so no issues there. As most of you know, I shoot on a Fujifilm X-T4, which uses X-mount, but they also make this lens for the Sony E-mount and Micro Four Thirds, which is surprising to me because you'd think Canon would be included in that list, but it's not. So, sorry Canon shooters. Of course, one of the cool things about this lens is the extra wide crop it gives your footage. This lens has a 1.33 times crop, which will shift your aspect ratio from 16:9 or 17:9 if you're shooting DCI to 2.4:1. This will give you those black bars you're used to seeing in movies without having to cheat and use a crop in post to achieve the same effect, which we've all done before, right? But needless to say, still a really cool look, so you won't have to do that anymore. In all seriousness though, the image out of this lens is super nice for the price, and I honestly don't have much to say other than that it's simply a great lens to shoot with. Unless you're in a studio setting like this, or shooting photos, but this is an anamorphic lens, so I doubt you'd be using this for anything short of a movie or some sick B-roll of your friend walking down the street. Overall, the SIRUI anamorphic lens is a great alternative to much more expensive anamorphic lenses and is way better than any cheap anamorphic filters or lens flares added in post with fake crop bars. Yeah, the appearance is similar, but being able to shoot it for real adds that extra bit of excitement while shooting, assuming you're willing to pay the $700 price tag. So, if you're looking to up your cinematic look, I definitely recommend looking at the SIRUI anamorphic lenses. You won't be disappointed, especially if you love shooting short films and love the dramatic look an anamorphic lens provides. All right, that's it from me. If you enjoyed this video, consider giving it a like and maybe checking out some of my other stuff. Thanks for watching, and I'll SIRUI you in the next one. Okay, bye.